Sir, just one last point. What kind of resolution do you want to see to this pork barrel controversy in terms of which people should go to jail, or eventually will lawmakers be actually removed of the privilege of nominating projects that they would want to have implemented in their districts?
Joel, perhaps I should share this with you, and we're thinking about this now. You're a politician, you'd want to get re-elected. Okay. Your work, therefore, has to devolve to constituency work. You tell them that they can no longer participate even in identifying. When they go home and they're asked by their constituents, I was told by an older politician, who will remember you come election time? Those that you have managed to help find work, those that you have educated, those that you have helped to gain medical attention. No. It's, to somebody who's in the bottom quintile, when you talk about laws like, for instance, the Clean Air Act and how it affects motor vehicles, and he says, I am not even aspiring to have a vehicle, no? But I do aspire to a road that will give me one transport fare, regardless of the season, whether it's the rainy or the hot summer months. No? In Tarlac, there was a price for summer months for transportation fare and also one for the wet months. The difference being the tricycles had difficulty traversing mud roads, and hence they had justification in increasing the rates. Okay. Now, so I go back. We remove all of that. What do? They spend their whole time lobbying all the departments to try and gain some projects for the respective districts. How many are we talking about? About 280 congressmen and 24 senators. 300, is my math correct? 314, 304? 20, 304. 304 meetings with each department that has something to offer. No, then the necessary follow-up for the same. So you're talking of 604 meetings with all of these legislators. And who do you expect to be in the session hall if they have not addressed their needs to be able to face the constituents that they did do something to improve the respective districts? No? Now, somebody might say, then ban them from meeting the cabinet members. That can be done. And then they will wait for the budget process to start grilling every cabinet member. And with 304 questions, how many days do you think we will add to the process of approving the budget? And if the budget is not enacted at the appropriate time, we go back to a reenacted budget scenario wherein savings can be misappropriated by unscrupulous entities. So what we're trying to do is find a solution that addresses all sectors' concerns, so that we can focus on doing the things that have to be done. And for the legislator, that is to craft the necessary laws to address the problems that we are now facing, not hypothetical, but we already have at present.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Joel.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. President. I'm Charmaine De Gracias of NHK TV Japan. I'd like to ask about the current state of bilateral relations with China. Post Scarborough Shoal, where are we now with our relations with China? Are we even moving forward? Many analysis have it that China is willing to kick the can down the road until the next Philippine president, the can being the South China Sea issue and even the bilateral relations. Are we going to wait up for China to reach out to us, or do we make moves or initiate talks on the high-level ground?
There have been discussions ongoing, but I think we should point out that, for instance, in terms of the economy, trade between China and the Philippines continues to grow. That seems to be proof by statements from both sides that the issues with regards to the dispute in the sea by many names should not be the be all and end all of our relationships. So I think both sides are acting from that pronouncement.
So just to follow up, do you concede that there are many observations that we have virtually lost Panatag Shoal? Do you concede to that reading? And why?
Because we can still go there, and we do have overflight missions, we do monitor what is happening. Some of our fisher folk are still in that area.
Okay, thank you. I've just been told that the President has to go. Last three there, and then last two here. All right? Go ahead.
Good morning, President.
I'm Emerson Lim from Central News Agency of Taiwan. The Balitaan incident, which caused a lot of challenges to Taiwan and Philippines, is considered closed, at least for now. And Taiwan and Philippines relation is starting to normalize. On what areas do you think Taiwan and Philippines can enhance cooperation?
There are ongoing discussions with regards to fisheries, no, at the present time. And basically, it's more coordination of each other's roles so that we do prevent an incident like the Balitaan Channel incident. There is very limited contact that I can do. No? There is, we have a one China policy. And my understanding is on the business front that has certainly been improving. So I guess Senator was saying that I'm happy with the current state of relations.
One more question. Taiwan and China's relation has been changing, and Taipei Economic and Cultural Office is calling the Philippines to view the Philippine and Taiwan relation pragmatically. What is your thought on this, sir?
I wonder what is meant by viewing the relationship with Taiwan pragmatically. I think we have tried to avoid them within the limits, all the practices within the limits of our laws and agreements with other states.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. President. Rose Francisca, sir, from Reuters. I'd like to ask you some questions about the economy. Sir, we're in the fourth quarter already, and based on probably latest data submitted to you, what do you think would be the pace of growth in the third quarter and for the full year this year? Are we going to sustain the first half growth of 7.6%?
You know, we're on a roll. I have not gotten information that says the targets will not be met. But I also have this personal belief that I shouldn't be talking about numbers and trying to avoid jinxing the results. So I hope you don't mind. We've been following that method and the results have always been good. So perhaps I should not be quoting a specific figure at this point in time.
But for the full year, sir, what is your expectation based on what we've seen so far?
Can I just say that we are confident we'll reach our targets. But I will not be displeased if we surpass the targets.
Sir,
Wait.
may I also ask you about the PPP, sir? What are your thoughts about the progress of this PPP projects, which you yourself launched in November 2010? There's frustration in the business sector over the delays in the progress of these projects, which were hoped to be part of your legacy. With around 2.5 years to go in your term, some of the major ones have not been bidded out yet. What are your thoughts on the pace, and what has been your marching orders to implementing agencies?
Depending on the PP project you're referring to, some of them, it were the bidders themselves that asked for an extension of the bidding deadline, and they wanted to go back to their studies to determine what their proposal should be as well. Second, I think you have to concede to us that, for instance, in the NLEX, SLEX connector, that was a road that was conceived in the 70s. The PD, I think it was 1894, that first brought about that concept. It had very novel concepts, novel as opposed to noble. Novel in the sense that if you added to it, then you would get a where Congress was not involved. And we were very uncomfortable with that. Given to PNCC, there were so many technicalities involved. And even if we suspected that certain portions might not be consistent with the 1987 Constitution, jurisprudence tells us that we cannot arbitrarily declare the same. It's not the power of the executive to declare the same unconstitutional. And before it becomes unconstitutional, we are bound to follow that which is in the law. So the end point being, would an entity not partnered with PNCC be authorized to have a connection with, for instance, the NLEX and the SLEX for that matter? That had to be resolved. There are so many legal studies that had to be done so that everything we were doing would be consistent with all of the laws of the land. studies that were done on various projects were old. They were no longer reflective of current situations. So instead of working on the data that was old that might be addressing the old problem instead of the current problem, we thought it was more prudent, as part of the mandate to the people to spend the money wisely, to revisit the studies and update them. And a lot of these are not done on a bi-weekly basis. They really have to be very, very thorough to ensure that any decision we make will withstand any scrutiny.
So, sir, given the complexities of those projects, what is the realistic prognosis? Do you think only a few would stand?
Can I answer? I'm actually scheduled to have a meeting and precisely to determine what can be done to accelerate, what will be realizable before I step down, what will be started before I step down, and the whole range of schedules. So before commenting on what is in my mind right now, perhaps I should see the latest reports, meaning I'll wait for them to report to me.
And then one more, sir, on the mining regulation. What is happening to the review of the revenue sharing regulation? And are you concerned about the pullback of investments in the mining sector, specifically after what happened to Xstrata in Tapacan?
Well, the draft, I understand, has been sent to either the Executive Secretary to myself, pending review. That's number one. Number two, perhaps there's not as much pressure because there has been a diminution in terms of commodities demand. So, at the end of the day, you want to make sure that the decision redounds to everybody's benefit and not just to a specific sector. There are legitimate questions with regards to the environmentalist concerns. There are oppositors on the people to various local communities that also have to be addressed. And we want a policy that is fair to everybody.
Thank you.
So were you bothered by the pullout of these firms from the mining sector?
Well, we were not counting on that as a done deal. So, again, the priorities of our investments have been in other areas at the present time until we resolve those issues that have been plaguing the mining industry.